Hi guys, welcome. And who dat? I'm Joe, and I am here to review, recap, and react to this past weekend's Week 13 matchup that saw the Detroit Lions come into town to the Caesars Superdome to take on our beloved Bless You Boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints. And Detroit wins the game. Unsurprisingly, most people predicted Detroit would win. And they did. Final score 33-28. So, you watch the game, and I've seen a lot of people react to it, and everyone's very, very negative. And I think I've got to say this before I go on. I've already determined that this team isn't very good, and we need drastic change. It would be almost counterintuitive for the team to play well with the situation the way it is. It seems counterintuitive. We want the team to play well. We also, as fans, see the writing on the wall. We need big changes to happen, and we need them to happen quick. And if this team continues to win, it makes draft picks worse. It makes the general manager and the owner complacent. And we don't want small victories as from our franchise as the fan base. We want to see big changes, and we want to see them as soon as possible. So, with all of that in mind, I've even started looking into next year's draft. I'm looking at potential head coaching replacements. I'm finding myself more interested in those things lately than what the actual team is going to do. Okay, so we all decided they were going to lose to Detroit. There's no way that the Saints, who were at the time 5-6, even though they were at home, were going to beat this 8-3 Detroit Lions team. We didn't think it was going to happen. And then you go into the game without Michael Thomas, Rashid Shaheed, Pete Werner, Marcus May, Marshawn Lattimore. You've got Cam Jordan limping around on a pitch count. You got a quarterback in Derek Carr who's struggling. Offensive coordinator who can't seem to figure out what works and what doesn't. You got a head coach in Dennis Allen who cannot seem to prepare this team to go into a game and be effective. It's almost as if we have to go off script before we finally start to produce as a team. So you got all that going against you. There's no way you're going to beat Detroit. Then on top of that, they drop 21 points on you in about 7 minutes. So lots of things to complain about. Well, it's like beating a dead horse with this team. I'm interested in seeing something entertaining. And quite honestly, after the first quarter, the Saints win the game 28-12, and it's pretty entertaining. Of course, you're not getting away from that 21-point deficit, and too little, too late. The team's obviously not good enough to do this, to actually pull off an epic comeback. But a 21-point deficit, it would be a really good comeback for any team, any franchise, under any situation. And the fact that the Saints were so beat up and we were so down on them, I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised at how close we almost came to winning this game. I was surprised when it was 21-0 and we're going into the second quarter. The game's over. I'm assuming a lot of people turned the game off. And I kept it on because, Might as well. Let's see what happens. They might make a game of it. I'm assuming they're going to lose anyway. After 21-0, yeah, maybe you are better off reshingling the house or painting or something instead of watching the rest of the game. So I'm working, but I'm still looking. And lo and behold, the team surprised me. They did something I didn't think they could do. They started fighting their way back. Derek Carr went 1 of 5 to start the game, and then he finishes 14 out of 15 before he gets hurt. And I didn't think they had it in with backup wide receivers and offensive coordinator who seems to never do what it needs to be done. I mean, the reason why this team went 4 for 4 in the red zone in this game is because we put it on Derek Carr's shoulders once and gave him a red zone option in Jimmy Graham. You put all those things together and, hey, you got a touchdown. But then the most important thing is Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara. You're in the red zone. Put it on their shoulders. Taysom finishes with a touchdown. Alvin finishes with 2 touchdowns. And this is the reason why the offense came back. You know, it's a lot of good things came from areas where we expected the worst. But sadly, of course, they're still doing things that cause them to lose. The defense giving up these horrible quarters, and I don't care what situation they're put in. They were put in a situation where they had the team at a last week or week before at the 5-yard line, and then the team marches 95 yards. You know, so there's an interception on the first play for the Saints, and that you've got a short field. That's what the defense has to work with in that situation. Detroit didn't have a short field on the first drive when they went 9 plays and ran almost every play and converted a 3rd and 7 on a running play. Yeah, that team, the Saints did not look prepared at all to go out there and to stop the run, which is exactly what everyone knew they had to go out there and do. So is every team just schematically better than us, player to player better than us? It's possible. It's possible. This team looks pretty competitive for the most part. Like I say, 28-12 for the majority of the game. It felt like the Saints were doing what they needed to do to win, but that 21-point deficit's too much to overcome. But is it really? When you had the ball with under a touchdown deficit, when you had the ball and you could have done something, you could have taken the lead. Derek Carr gets hurt. Hey, everybody seems to not like Derek Carr right now, and I think he's the best option on the team as far as pure quarterback between the 20s. I'm interested in seeing what Taysom Hill could do. 6 years ago, when Sean Payton, decided to treat him like a pocket passer and, basically told him not to run, when Taysom Hill's the kind of guy where if the first read isn't there, take off running. Taysom Hill may be a very effective quarterback in the right system with the right coach. But as it stands right now, I'll go with Derek Carr between the 20s. It's once you get in the red zone. Give me Jameis. Give me Taysom. Give me a heavy dose of running the ball. You just work around your weaknesses. So Derek Carr's an average quarterback. I expect him to be better than Andy Dalton. I think if you're efficient enough and the defense plays good enough, then you can survive with a situation like that. So when Derek Carr goes 17 out of 22 for 226 yards, he throws a touchdown in the red zone, yeah, I'm pretty excited. That's a good day for him. He fumbles the ball, but it's not his fault. I mean, he was holding that damn ball out there like a loaf of bread. It was real easy for the guard to knock it out of his hand because he didn't have both hands on it for starters. But that's just a weird situation where the guard pulls and knocks the ball out, actually forces the fumble. You think that things are going against you when stuff like that happens. And then Jameis throws this pass that gets tipped, and Olave ends up catching it. And it's the biggest play for Jameis that day, and two defenders just waiting to take it. Seems like the ball's bouncing in our favor in that situation. But I don't fault Carr on the interception. I don't. A.T. Perry's wide open. That's fine. That's my issue with Carr. He checks down too much. But when you check down to a guy who's open and it hits him in the hands and he doesn't catch it, then yeah, there could be an interception. At least they didn't bring that interception back for a touchdown. So anyway, that's my stance on the whole thing. I decided to get the rant out early. I've seen every reactor out there just harp on this 21-point deficit and forget about the remaining 3 quarters of the game. And I know it's all moot when it comes to a team that's going nowheres and needs change. A lot of those yards are empty yards. But a football game's a football game. And when you get the ball and you're down 6 points and you have a chance to take the lead, march down the field and take the lead, then you're in the game. And it's pretty entertaining to me. I think that I feel better about watching this team come back from such a big deficit. I feel better about that than I would of this team going back and forth and just not finding a way to win. I mean, the bottom line is we lose the game by 5 points, and it's one of the best teams in the league. So can we go toe-to-toe with someone in the playoffs if we make the playoffs? Yeah, I don't want to make the playoffs. I did a mock draft this weekend. Right now, the Saints would pick number 9. I took Jaden Daniels so fast. And then, we've got an awful situation with our draft picks this year. We really do. I mean, we get a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and then we don't pick again until the 5th round. That's a huge gap. And some of the best drafts the Saints have ever had were when we hit gold in those middle rounds. I am the kind of guy that would be so tempted to trade down. If I had a high first-round pick, I didn't get the quarterback I wanted, I would trade down so many times and pick up so much extra picks because we need youth. We're the oldest team in the league. We need so many players in so many different positions. And when you put it all together, you bunch all your draft picks together to move up to get that one guy, and then that one guy ends up suspended or speeding or injured, and then you're stuck with all your old players and your backups again. So anyway, I'm going to do a video about the draft, several videos about the draft. And like I said, I'm looking forward to it because I've given up on this team. But as far as covering the game, I'm going to be as fair as possible. And this was a pretty fun game to watch. It was pretty epic how they came back. But is it a comeback if you don't win? All right, let's look at the stats. Derek Carr, 17 of 22, 226 yards. He had a touchdown. He had an interception. He had a fumble. The interception was a drop by Johnson, and the fumble was caused by his pulling left guard. Carr was sacked twice, and the second one, it was a penalty on the defender because he landed on top of him. Carr had to leave the game. They almost had to bring the stretcher out. He has a concussion, possibly. He's got a hurt back. He's got a hurt neck. He's got a hurt shoulder. And Derek Carr is one of those guys that seems to recover from injury pretty quick. So I'm going to be doing a preview video of the upcoming Saints-Carolina game. That'll come out on Thursday. And by then we'll have some indication of what Carr's injury is all about. I would be practicing with Jameis as the starter for the entire week, and I would be rolling with Jameis. And if Carr's healthy enough to go, he'd be my backup. And I would just go with a 1-week plan of a heavy dose of Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston. Now, that's what I would do. And I don't know if this team's going to do that. Probably not. The last time this happened, we didn't know if Carr was going to play. I'm sure Jameis got most of the starting reps, and then we ended up playing Carr. And, of course, he didn't look good. And the same thing happens when Jameis gets called up cold off the bench after not practicing all week and then having to come in the fourth quarter and be something. He comes in the fourth quarter, and he goes 2 for 5. His first completion should have been intercepted, were it not for another Detroit player who thought he could intercept it. The ball bounces straight up in the air, and Olave catches it. That gets us in the red zone, and then, we put it in the hands of Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara after that, and we scored a touchdown. The next time we got on the field, Jameis threw one pass short in the middle to Alvin Kamara, who's wide open, short pass in the middle. That got a first down, and then we gave it a dose of running back Taysom Hill. And then there was a second down. We threw it Winston incomplete. Third down, we threw it Winston incomplete. Fourth down, we threw it Winston incomplete, and we lost the game. It's funny how when you put all of it on the shoulders of the quarterback on this team, that's not Taysom Hill, that things go south. And Jameis threw some ugly balls. He threw an out route that wasn't out enough. He threw one to Olave that the timing was just completely off. Olave's coming back from a concussion. I'm surprised he produced as well as he did. To get your head turned around and to have a different quarterback throwing you this fastball, still in all, it hits him in the hands and he drops it. The whole operation looked off. I blame Winston on that. Olave would have probably been more open if Winston would have just put a little more touch on the ball, led him toward the middle of the field a little bit, or maybe they would have never completed that pass. All I know is Winston was 2 of 5. One of them was a safe pass. One of them should have been intercepted for completions. And then the other 3 were just awful, and we lose the game. Taysom Hill threw 2 balls. He was 0 for 2. I must have been busy working or doing something. I didn't even notice those 2 passes. Like I said, I ended up focusing on the game again because it got pretty interesting. The Saints coming back the way they did, and a lot of that has to do with Derek Carr. If Derek Carr wouldn't have got hurt, would we have come back and won the game? It's possible. Very possible. Running the ball, Taysom Hill, 13 carries, 59 yards, 4.5 yard average. He had a touchdown. He had a long of 21. And I like when Hill gets involved in the game. He should have been involved on that last drive a couple of more times. Alvin Kamara, 14 carries, 51 yards. That's 3.6. As long as you're 3.5 or better, I'm okay. Kamara had 2 touchdowns. When you're running the ball in the red zone, your carries are shorter. So 3.6 is good. 2 touchdowns is great. Kamara had a long of 16. And Kamara was very effective in this game. He's a dominant player. As long as you get Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara involved heavily, you have a great chance of winning the game. When you're down 21-0, it's a little harder. But proof's in the pudding. We almost pulled off the comeback. And we involved Hill and Kamara. Jamal Williams, revenge game? No. 5 carries, 10 yards. Average of 2 yards a carry. Jamal Williams, I thought paying him $4 million a year was a good thing because we needed a solid number 2, but he's not a solid number 2. And I expect if Kendre Miller can avoid injuries, I expect Miller to be our backup. And Jamal Johnson is getting highly overpaid right now for doing this. Nothing. And do I want to blame the offensive line? I don't know. Other backs are finding room. Lynn Bowden Jr. had 2 carries last week for 40 yards. This week he had 2 carries for -6. Those sweeps didn't work this week. Derek Carr was also credited with a couple of rushing yards or whatever. The final stats for the rushes for the Saints, 36 carries, 113 yards. It's only 3.1 a carry. But we were committed to the run, and being down 21-0 and finding our way to be back in the game and having 31 carries, actually more rushes than passes. That's pretty wild. That's something I didn't think our offensive coordinator was capable of doing. I didn't think he was capable of putting Jimmy Graham in the game in the red zone. I didn't think he was capable of focusing on Hill and Kamara when you're in the red zone. I didn't think he was capable of that. 3 rushing touchdowns total for the team. So 36 carries, 3 touchdowns. Hey, so close to winning football. Receiving, wide receiver Chris Olave comes back from a concussion after only 1 week and looks really good. 5 catches, 119 yards. He was targeted 8 times. We got a lot more out of Olave in this game than I thought we would. Alvin Kamara, 6 catches, 58 yards. Massively productive. He was targeted 8 times. A.T. Perry was targeted 3 times. He caught 1 for 30 yards. One of the best passes Carr's thrown all year. A.T. Perry was wide open on the first play when Carr checked it down. Everybody's mad about that. If you throw the ball and it hits your receiver in the hands, then you did your job. This was the first down play. It's not like we needed, to get beyond the sticks. It'd be nice to have a quarterback good enough to see Perry wide open. I watched the game with Green Bay and Kansas City this past week, and Mahomes missed a couple of pretty wide open players too. The last play of the game, as a matter of fact, he had an easy completion to the running back. He had just faked the ball to him, and it was one of those, you throw it quick to him, he catches it, he gets the first down, you go out of bounds, you live to play another 4 downs. Instead, he tried to take a shot down the field. So Mahomes can make mistakes when the game's on the line. I'm okay with Carr making a mistake on the first pass when the guy he threw to was open and dropped the ball. Tight end Foster Moreau, 2 catches on 2 targets for 28 yards. Taysom Hill was targeted twice. He caught both of them for 15 yards. Jimmy Graham had that 1 touchdown, 1 target, 1 catch, 1 touchdown, 6 yards, touchdown. Great job, Jimmy Graham. Saints touchdown for Jimmy Graham in 2023. Amazing. Okay. Jamal Williams, 1 target, 1 catch, 6 yards. Lynn Bowden Jr., 1 target, 1 catch, 5 yards. And Juwan Johnson targeted 3 times. One of Hill's 2 incompletions came when Johnson couldn't get to the ball, and Johnson dropped that first one that was intercepted. And overall, Johnson targeted 3 times. 0 catches, 0 yards. Now, on the defensive side of the ball for the Saints, the tight ends have been tearing our defense up lately. And that got me thinking, well, that's why we thought Juwan Johnson was going to be so successful this year, because in training camp, him and Carr were blowing up the Saints defense. And so now we know every tight end blows up the Saints defense. Is Juwan Johnson that bad? No, I don't think so. Is Derek Carr incapable of getting the ball to the tight end? I don't think so. I'm going to have to go with Johnson was hurt, so he's not the player he was before the injury. He's also got an active, full life outside of football with his little Instagram thing or whatever, and his wife and his newborn child. I don't know if it's a boy or girl, son or daughter. So maybe he's just got a lot on his plate right now. I don't know. It's not worth the raise we gave him. I'll say that for sure. And whenever you're down 2 of your best wide receivers, yeah, you need someone like Johnson to step up. Let's take a look at the defensive stats. The defensive stats is they allowed 21 points in the first quarter. That's the defensive stats. You played great for 3 quarters. I wish I could take away that first quarter, and this team did amazing, but no, they didn't. They go out there, they allow all this. Doesn't matter what situation you're put in. It's tough when you're put in a situation. I expect that you give up a touchdown when they have a short field after a turnover, but I don't expect you to give up a 9-play opening drive that included, I think, 7 runs when you knew that's what you had to stop and you just couldn't do it. You're as fresh as you're going to be for the game, and you can't do it. A 21-point first quarter. This defense is supposed to hold teams to under 20 points. Ridiculous. But here are the stats anyway. Paulson Adebo, 8 total tackles and a pass defense. Nephi Sewell plays on the same field with his brother twice now this season. And this time against his brother in Detroit. Sewell has to take Werner's place, and he ends up with 8 total tackles and 2 tackles for a loss. Sewell was beat in coverage a couple of times. And, he was probably at fault for some of them reverses and stuff. But, hey, overall, he had a pretty solid day with 8 total tackles. Werner hadn't had 8 total tackles in months. Nathan Shepard had 5 total tackles. Not bad from the defensive tackle. Isaac Yiadom, again, shout out. Got to give him kudos. We were focusing on covering Ahmad St. Brown in this game. And so I'm sure Yiadom had a lot of help, as did Adebo or whoever else had to cover St. Brown. But still, shout out to Yiadom. 4 total tackles. Demario Davis had 4 total tackles. Jordan Howden had 4 total tackles and a quarterback hit. Colin Saunders had 4 total tackles. Alontae Taylor had 3 total tackles. Carl Granderson had 3 total tackles, a pass defense, and 2 quarterback hits. Granderson had a good day. Malcolm Roach had 3 total tackles, and sadly he was hurt at the end of the game, and it might be significant. He was pretty upset after the game, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. That sucks for me because Malcolm Roach is one of those guys that, a lot like Granderson, who gets more and more playing time as he's on the team. He got a new contract. He's expected to be a backup, but every time he's out there, he's performing. So, it could be a player ready to turn a corner or that has turned a corner because every time he plays, he's effective. Well, he won't get a chance to play the rest of the year if that injury is significant. Linebacker Zach Vaughn had a sack. Imagine that. We drafted him. His power was rushing the passer. We never rush him. And then we do in this game, and he gets a sack. So how about that? To go along with 2 tackles. Cam Jordan, I think he only played 16 snaps, mostly rundowns. He finished with 2 tackles and a tackle for a loss. Tano Passanio had to play a lot in Jordan's spot. He finished with 2 total tackles and a tackle for a loss. Ryan Brissy finished with 2 total tackles. And Jonathan Abram, who is on the active roster now because we couldn't elevate him anymore from the practice squad, so he is on the active roster now. He finishes with 2 total tackles. All right. So the Saints did very well. I guess people say empty yards, stuff like that. Can't take away the first quarter. You get beat 21-0, and then you make it a game. So I say kudos to them for being way undermanned and overmatched and still producing the way they do for the 3 quarters that they did. So were they playing for the coach? I don't know. They were playing for themselves, probably, and their jobs, probably. Not so much for the coach. I think the offense is fed up with Pete Carmichael's inability to use what we do really well and do it over and over again, to give this team confidence in something that they do. When Colin Saunders went out there and Alvin Kamara ran the ball, that looked like something that they had fun doing. And it was like, yeah, as long as you do that, we'll keep scoring. Isn't that wild? Colin Saunders at fullback, Taysom Hill or Alvin Kamara running the ball. Seems to work in the red zone. Then you go 0 for 5 in the red zone last week. And that's the reason why fans don't like the coaching situation. In this case, on offense. And, and then this week you do something like that and it works. Well, if the players have lost faith, it's because of that. Because whenever you do call the right thing, the things I think are going to work, and they do work, seems to get the players excited. Derek Carr had no problem handing the ball off to Kamara. When Kamara runs in for a touchdown, Derek Carr probably has no issues in the red zone if you give him a play like Jimmy Graham's in the end zone, throw it to him. We improve in places. We go 4 for 4 in the red zone. Big difference. We convert on third downs. We're 6 of 12 on third downs. We have more plays than the Lions. 67 plays we run. They ran 56. We had more first downs, 23 first downs to their 18. We had more total yards. Again, we usually have more total yards than the opposing team. Running the ball well, that's why we give up 21 points in the first quarter. The Lions had 105 rushing yards in the first half. They finished with 142. So 37 yards rushing in the second half. When they were up by that much, and you would think they would just try to run the clock out, the defense finally stepped up against the run. But yeah, it's too little too late when you give up 105 rushing yards in the first half. By the way, 2 weeks ago, the Saints had the most yards they've had in the first quarter all year. And in this past week, I think we finished the first quarter with 5 passing yards. Yeah. That's when the stuff that you see get improved, like the red zone and the third down conversions and commitment to the running game, calling the right plays in the red zone, all that stuff. You see it get turned around, and then you see other things, like the defense still allowing too many points in one quarter. Like the defense allowing the Detroit to convert 3 of 5 in the red zone. Detroit was 6 of 13 on third downs, which could be better for our defense. The defense still allows a ton of rushing yards. And the penalties. Both teams had 6 penalties, but they were, costly for the Saints. They usually are. I think Eric McCoy was flagged for a false start maybe twice, which is insane for a center. And, of course, our inability to cover the tight end. Well, we were focused on Ahmad St. Brown, and we were down Marcus May and Pete Werner, so our coverage wasn't going to be good anyway against tight ends. But without Werner, without May, and so you've got Nephi Sewell out there. You've got Jordan Howden out there, maybe Jonathan Abram, Alontae Taylor, whoever had their chance to guard tight end. Sam Laporta didn't do it. He set a Lions rookie tight end record for most receiving yards in a game. 9 catches, 140 yards, and a touchdown. We finally figured it out a little bit in the second half, and of course, the nail in the coffin, the final first down that seals the deal for the Lions in this game was a completion to Laporta. Oh, I did a lot of mock drafts before the year started, and I drafted Laporta several times because this class of tight end was pretty awesome. I figured the Saints would pick up some extra picks and address tight end just to get one guy in this class. Laporta was there in the 4th round. For the Saints, when we took the offensive lineman that hadn't shown anything yet. And then we took the quarterback that's not going to get a chance anytime soon. And the Lions took Sam Laporta. He had a great game against us. So that's going to be it for this review, reaction, and recap. Overall, I'm upset that everybody's throwing remotes at the TV. I mean, have fun with it. I mean, we almost won the game. This team isn't any good. I'm dead set on watching the ownership get rid of the coaching staff and start fresh. I want to see us focus on rebuilding the team. I would like to draft a quarterback of the future. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I would at least like to show, that we're going to try. We're not just going to go with the Dennis Allen, Derek Carr project. We give Jake Haener a chance, maybe draft another quarterback, maybe bring another one in, another free agent. If you can bring in somebody like Andy Dalton, not Andy Dalton, but somebody like that for $3 or $4 million, go ahead and do it. Give Derek Carr competition. We've wasted the money on him. We're going to have to figure out how to fill the cupboard with the rest of the little bit of grocery money we have. But I don't care if he's sitting on the bench. If the other quarterback's giving us a chance to win, I'm not saying tank. I'm saying let's get something else going on. We need a new coach, new offense, new defense. We need coaches that the players are going to respect and are going to go out there and play hard for. And we need different kinds of players. I like the culture, but we need to get rid of this 6'5", 280-pound stereotype for defensive ends who can't chase after a running back or a quarterback. We need to bring some edge rushers in here, speed at linebacker. Yeah, we need a difference. Quarterback would be a big difference. Well, good luck with that in the draft. If the Saints keep losing, we'll have a shot at somebody. I'd love to see us get Jaden Daniels. Michael Penix is a good player, in my opinion, too. So, but anyway, I'm Joe. We'll talk about the draft later on. Subscribe to Rosenfield 10 for more videos like this. And keep your eyes open on Thursday for that preview against our NFC South divisional rival, the Carolina Panthers. And until then, I'll talk to you later. Who dat?